So proud and happy to be at the Manitoba Child Care Association's 40th annual conference here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and further extra proud and happy to be speaking with April Kalyniuk, who has been the Canadian Child Care Federation chair up until just last year, and is the current Manitoba Child Care Association president, and is somebody who has worked a lot behind the scenes in both the Manitoba Child Care Association and the Canadian Child Care Federation, I think for 13 years. April, is that right?
13 years.
Yeah. We've known each other a lot longer than that. And it's always been my pleasure to work with you. And you know, off camera, you were just saying about wisdom. And I've just learned through my years so much from you and been so grateful that I've had the chance to work with you. And so I thought, you know, this is a great time for you to come out front and center and talk a little bit about yourself, your career, and the sector. So let's start with that. So your career, when did you start? What brought you to early childhood? And did you ever see yourself being where you are today?
So let me think about this. Where did it start? I think I always knew I wanted to work with children. I think when I was young, I babysat and did all those normal things. And early childhood, when I graduated from high school, was just coming into its own. There was a program at the college here, and I thought, yeah, that sounds like a good career. That sounds like something I would like to do. You know, sometimes you go in thinking, well, I'm young, I'm a little bit introverted, maybe that's a great place to start. But once you got into it, that's where I want to be, you know, and I've never looked back. I did work, by the way, for the government of Manitoba for a year in between when I graduated and when I got into the program at Red River, because there was a wait list then, and worked for the Department of Agriculture and went, this is definitely not what I want to do with my life. So took the Red River course and have been in the field ever since.
So you started working, what program did you start in? And how did you rise up to become executive director? When we first met, you were at Carter Daycare here in Winnipeg. And maybe just talk a little bit too about how you got involved with MCCA.
So my first job, we won't talk about because it was 6 months. It was not in a great place. But I was fortunate enough to get hired it was Coburg Day Nursery way back then. And actually 2 minutes ago, I just saw the director there wandering around here. She's an amazing lady. And I won't tell you how old she is because I've been in the field almost 40 years and she was the director then. So worked at Elmwood or Coburg for, 6 years. No, 4 years, I guess. And went to Carter Daycare after that. And I was hired as the supervisor there, or the assistant director, small center, 32 spaces. I'd always wanted to work at Carter because it was just a small program, really intimate, really nice relationship with families. And so when I went there, the director at the time was hired by the college to teach. And lo and behold, I was made the director. So I was there for 21 years. During that time, even when I was at Elmwood, I was active with MCCA, and it was back in the day where if you were part of an organization, you didn't get time off work to go, you didn't get paid for meetings, and so that was way back in 1982, and MCCA was this little tiny organization, and my job there was to fundraise, and they wanted me to raise like $20,000 in fundraising. No. You know, I was like, I don't know, how old was I? 19, 20 years old, going, no, this I can't do. I can be on this board, but I can't do that. But I had been involved with MCCA since that time. And I was at Carter for 21 years. And then, as you know, I moved to Lord Roberts in 2005 when you left, and have been there ever since. And my term as president of MCCA was 2000 to 2002, which means I joined the Federation in the fall of 2002 and was there until, I guess, 2015, right? 2016. Well, we did the award, or you gave me a farewell. Right, I think it was 2015. You're right. Yeah. So that's my career in a nutshell. And here I am. I'm president of MCCA, and I'll be back at the Federation next year.
Were you ever, or did you ever contemplate, because you've been in a lot of really amazing meetings, you've met a lot of politicians, a premier or two, a lot of ministers, you've met a prime minister, met Ken Dryden. And you've sat in on these and contributed to, not just sitting in, contributed to these. Did you ever at any point in your life say, this is where I want to go and I'm really involved in the politics and the policy of early childhood and childcare?
Did I ever consciously think that? No. I think there's sometimes in life you just end up in a place. And whether it's because you're a certain kind of person or that, but I tend to end up in charge of things lots of times. I'm not always, like you said, I like to be behind the scenes. I don't like to be in front very often, but I do like to be involved. I like to know. I always told my staff I'm a need to know person, and treat me like that, because I want to know what's going on. I want to know how it's happening. I want to know what I can do to make things better, or change things. So that's kind of where that comes from. Did I think I was going to do that? No. I think there's still people that go, I can't believe she's actually doing that, that kind of thing.
So through your career, what do you think, and there can be several things, what have been the biggest changes from when you started to where you are today? Good and maybe if not so good.
Well, I think the biggest change in my career would have been when the regulations came in Manitoba. So that was the recognition that, we weren't babysitters, that there was more to taking care of large groups of children, or children period, than just having no knowledge. And that's not to say that parents don't do a good job and grandparents don't do it, but there's more to it. And so I think that was the biggest change for me in the sector, is like, I remember going to a director's meeting once, and there were people who'd been in the field longer than I that were going, well, we don't like these regulations and da-da-da-da-da. And I said, well, I didn't like when we didn't have them, and I think we're protecting children, protecting ourselves, and building a career path. So that was the biggest change. The converse of that is what Sandy alluded to this morning, was that things haven't changed. We're still fighting those same battles. We're still trying to make working conditions and wages a priority for our field. There's still waiting lists. There's still horror stories that you're hearing from places where there shouldn't be that anymore. And I know anyone in social services would say it's the same in our field. There's good people and there's things that go wrong all the time. But you would think for children who are so vulnerable that we would have come farther. So that disappoints me. And I think it's too bad we just don't have an endless pot of money to just make it happen. Because I think no matter what government it is, they really will do their best. But they also have to be fiscally responsible. And that, I think, is the saddest thing, is that after 30 years of doing this, or actually almost 40, that things have come, but they haven't, and I try and be positive. And someone sent me a little message yesterday, and it said, oh, I remember meeting you at Carter, and you were the first person I talked to about early learning and childcare, and you were so excited about your staff and so excited about the field. And sometimes I think I've lost a little bit of that, because I'm becoming more skeptical that things haven't moved, right? And so that worries me, that we give up trying because things take so long. But every system takes time. So this is the Canadian Child Care Federation's 30th anniversary, and you have been there for half of those years as member council chair, as chair of the board, and as a Manitoba's rep to the organization. What is the Federation meant to you in terms of your career, and just even in terms of opening up your views and your vision to, it's bigger than just Manitoba, or just bigger than the small community that I'm working in, or the part of the community I'm working in? So I'm just going to go back. I think I was involved with the Federation before that time, because I was on the MCCA board when the Federation was born. And I remember Sandy Griffin and Karen Chandler doing their around the country tour and saying, like, and Dorothy Dudick was executive director at that time at MCCA, and saying, is this something that Manitoba folks would be interested in being part of? And just going, of course, why wouldn't we? To have a national voice and to get a national perspective on something we're working so hard at home. Of course we want to be part of that. And we were very lucky in Manitoba to always have a strong association. Started small, but it was always dedicated and moved. And when I got to the Federation table, I was amazed at how little people like at that time in New Brunswick were running with, or in the north part of our country, how they have no support for the work they do, not just at the level of the centers, but just for their professional development and things like that. Opened my eyes quite a bit, made me think that we can do better. We can do better. And so part of what the Federation has always done is to support those small little organizations that had no one there. And well, you and I know how the membership fees work and how people say, well, how come they're not doing this? Well, because they need our support. They're never going to get anywhere if they don't have something, you know. And I think a national voice that's sending out the same message from province to province is so much better for us. You know, I was listening again to Sandy this morning, and I don't know if you'll talk about that in this, but the children, the heart of the matter, I was at that conference, and it's just opened my world to, you know what, we are a profession and we do need this, and families in Canada need us to do those fact sheets. Our workforce needs us to do those studies, because if we don't, who will? Little organizations that have 2 staff or 1 staff, you know, some of them are still struggling like that, you know. So I think the Federation plays such an important role, you know, and I don't know how you get that out to all the people, that how important it is. But I mean, we just keep on plugging, right? Keep on plugging.
It's fair to say then, as you talked a little bit already about what Sandra Griffin said this morning, just about children at the heart of the matter, and then you were on the Federation board when we expanded or refined that a little bit, and we just used the tagline, and still do, we value children. Mm-hmm. Having known you for these many years, I think that is, and you just spoke about it, really is the core of your being too. Mm-hmm. That one of the reasons you do the work you do, and you still involved, and you know, getting frustrated. I understand that. I hear that a lot from not just you but others. That, you know, we need to move further. But at the end of the day, you know, yes, this is political, but it's about children. Fair. I mean, that resonates with you.
Absolutely. It of course it does. It is only about children, right? It's about making, well, is it about children? It's about families. I think I need to broaden that, because it's about making things happen for families, children being the most important people in those families, right? I don't know any parent that wouldn't say my children are not, they're the most important thing in my life, right? My kids. So for families to be able to go to work, for families to be able to succeed, that's all part of it. You know, and so, yes, it's about the children, but it's about families. It's about the kind of place I want to live in, is like where families are supported, whether they choose to stay home, whether they choose to go to work or they have no choice, whether they're students, whatever that looks like. I want those children to be safe and well cared for, and people in our society to go out there and say, I know my kids are safe today. I don't have to worry about that, you know, and I don't know how anything could be less important than that.
So what is your vision for down the road, for childcare, for children, for families, for the sector?
That's a really hard question. I'm not the most visionary person. I do know that I would like to see, you know, a space for every child, you know, things we talk about all the time, that wants it. I'd like to see quality programs, and quality programs being funded properly, so that when you have, you know, 25-year-old equipment, centers are not going, well, we'll just have to make do a little longer with that. I think children deserve beautiful spaces. I think children deserve well-educated staff. So I see roles for, you know, childcare assistants and early childhood educators and anyone that's there. But there's a part of me that would like to know that everyone at least has really good training at even the lowest, that's not the right word, lowest. Even the CCAs have more than 40 hours. I'd like to see everyone understand the importance of brain development and things like that. But most of all, I'd like to see a system where we're respected for our work, and that families are respected for their choices. And I think having waiting lists of 15,000 kids for waiting lists is not respecting parental choice, right? That's saying, understood, you might want a space, but we're not going to do much to make that better. So my vision would be space for every child that wants it, a workforce that's compensated and recognized, and I don't know, lovely environments for kids.
That was awesome. Thank you.